This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. Today's podcast is brought to you by Leverage, a new fully featured decentralized futures exchange without compromise. Leverage is a DEX, so you can trade with your keys and sign orders with just one click. And Leverage is fast. Yes, indeed. Leverage is powered by Gluon, a layer 2 solution with the scalability and speed of a centralized exchange and the super low fees of a DEX. That's right, Leverage combines the best features of CeFi and DeFi so you can trade crypto spot and derivatives with up to 100x leverage while maintaining control of your assets at all times. And this month, Leverage are running a trading competition with a $25,000 grand prize that goes to the account that gets the largest dollar value increase over that period. And there's lots of smaller prizes too. Want in? Of course you do. If that's you, go to leverage.io for all of the details. And of course, Leverage is spelled LEVERJ.io and trade the future of crypto today. And now it's on with the show.
Yeah, boy!
My guests today are Jaime Rogozinski. He is the founder of WSB, and also on the show we have Vix, who is the CEO of the new WSB Dapp. So we're going to learn all about this in today's show. But I think most listeners will be aware that, the WSB movement for financial democracy. This, of course, started on Reddit as a subreddit, and it became a global phenomenon at the start of this year. Well, welcome to the show, Jaime, and welcome, Vix.
Thank you very much for having me and us.
Yep, thank you very much.
Great to have you guys here. So this is quite exciting stuff. So this is really the wider movement here. It's about what you guys are doing with WSB and the new WSB Dapp, or decentralized application. And I think the idea is to kind of give the community a new tool to really voice their opinions as retail investors. So we're going to have to explain how this all works. But just before we do that, I'd love to get just a little bit of background from both of you as to who you are and how you fit into all this. So let's start with you, Jaime. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess I'm most known for having started WSB Dapp. This was 9 or so years ago. I guess my background is heavily in technology and finance, and very entrepreneurial as far as my career is concerned. But my hobby has been finance for as long as I can remember. And WSB Dapp was very much a hobby and continues to be. But I also very apt participant and observer of all these changes that are taking place in the world of finance, the way that they're being used, and the demographics of groups of people that are involved. So I'm very much involved with that as well.
Fantastic. And look, I'll come back to your backstory with WSB in 1 second, because this is it's fascinating stuff. So Vix, over to you, my man. Let's have a little bit of an introduction from your good self.
Sure. I definitely character myself as a degenerate gambler. So nice. The early days of finding crypto kind of suited myself well. I think I want to say I was probably one of the first people banned from our WSB about talking about crypto, but it's probably up in the top 100 or so. So to now come full circle to this movement is quite exciting. But got involved in crypto 2013, probably most well known in the space of running some of the largest telegrams in all of crypto, starting in 2015. I think as a conglomerate, we have about 416 groups within the under the umbrella, and we were some of the earliest people that were doing bots to combat mod related things, whether it be where it didn't exist. So we built a lot of communities, and we're continuing to build that out. So that's probably the biggest part of how people know me in crypto and my background, where I come now.
Wow, really, really interesting. Okay, well, look, we need to start at the beginning here, I think. So, Jamie, I'd love it if you could give some background here to Wall Street Bets. Take us back to the beginning. What is it, and what were the early days like? And just kind of give us the backstory leading up to, I guess, the events that took place earlier this year.
So Wall Street Bets, it's a community that I founded, that I started back, like I said, in 2012. This is at a time in my personal life when I'm single. I have a good job with a decent disposable income, no kids, no dependents, and therefore having a large appetite for risk, right? So I have extra money laying around, and I have the 401k and the retirement stuff, but I have money that I want to put to work in a more aggressive way, right? In a way that it's more active, that I have more control over, and that is going to offer higher risks and higher returns. And wanting to learn about these things, I knew about the stock markets, I knew about obviously economics and the finance and the mechanics of the basics. But when it came to actually trying to implement some of these trades, I didn't find any place online where I could meet other people that were similar minded, or people that were willing to teach. Most places are either really conservative and they're pushing diversification and index funds and things of that nature, or on the other side of the coin, you have professionals, people that do this for a living, and they either work at an investment bank or a prop shop, or maybe even do it on their own, but they have a well-established discipline, and this is their only source of income. Whereas with me, I'm looking for some more fun. Of course, I want to make money, but if I lose all of it, then no big deal. I'll just continue going to work and get some more money, and I'll try again next week. And so Wall Street Bets is created at this point, and there was clearly a lot of demand for this type of conversation or community because it naturally, organically started growing, started doubling every year in size. Around that same time, you also start having discount brokers. These are brokers that let you trade stocks and options for really cheap, really low commissions. Eventually, we get the free brokers that do it for zero commissions, which just explodes the space. The minimum requirements and the barriers of entry are pretty much eliminated altogether as the years go by. And eventually that spills into stock options, which are great for this type of gambling or trading or whatever we want to call it. And, things continue to grow. We had a lot of high profile situations where people did similar but different things towards GameStop, and we did manage to make the news several times. But this GameStop saga, which is what we've seen in the last couple of months, culminated in just a perfect storm. A perfect storm between having a well-selected stock, a well-selected individual to champion it, and a perfect profile for a short squeeze. And now we are where we are today.
And, where we are today, so most people that are listening to this podcast they'll be more crypto traders and crypto investors. And I know that, Wall Street Bets kind of started off, am I right in thinking that the subreddit, it started off more in, I guess, traditional investing or stock investing, even though some of the plays that your community would be discussing slightly more outside of the box thinking, whether you want to call that degen or gambling, or those kind of memes that are very much current across both crypto and stock or stonk investing today.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely did. Look, if we're talking about gambling, there's a bazillion ways of doing it, right? And so the focus on Wall Street Bets was on stocks, and almost not explicitly, but implicitly US-based stocks. It was just the choice at the time. There's a lot of different reasons for it. You don't see, for example, penny stocks. You can also gamble with those very well. And, you can talk about biotech, but they don't tend to make it very often because it's not really the mood of that crowd. And cryptocurrencies, when they started, which was, roughly around the same time as Wall Street Bets, they were still in their infancy. So, the ability for the community to do what they wanted to do, or even me on the practical level, it was tricky, right? If I wanted to get a wallet and put money into it, I don't even remember how you could do it. Like you need to really invest a lot of time. Nowadays, I can buy with my PayPal account. I don't have to do anything, right? Obviously, that's not necessarily the best way to do it, but the accessibility is so much there. The liquidity is completely something different. Like we talk about spreads and things of that nature, it matters a lot. The amplitude of instruments that are available back then, it was just Bitcoin, right? So it was still too young of a platform or a space to be able to integrate it. Nowadays, as far as I'm concerned, is crypto is not only very well matured, I think there is an inevitable force that's going to push crypto or DeFi with what we're calling Wall Street, right? Which is going to be the traditional, stock exchanges.
That is exactly right. And really the story of, what has brought you two together and the purpose of this podcast is it really is kind of the merging of the original Wall Street Bets community with the new opportunities and capabilities and functionality that decentralized blockchains enable, and that is effectively enabled the birth of the Wall Street Bets Dapp, and look, we'll get there soon. But I guess, look, it's such a well-known story now, but I think it's kind of crucial to the backstory here. So I guess, Jamie, it'd be good just to, I'd love to get your kind of inside perspective on what it was like to be, I guess, at the center of the storm as this GameStop saga was taking place, because you would have been probably watching it right from the beginning, and then it just became this incredible story that captured the world's attention, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was following it all along, and I'm not new to being in the center of attention. Like I said, there's been occasions before, but these are going to be, there's been occasions where Wall Street Bets becomes the center of attention, but it tends to be more specialized type of attention. You need to read Bloomberg and not the front page, but like the back few pages to be able to talk about this. But there was a lot of interesting instances where people on Wall Street Bets did some really interesting things. And so thankfully I'd gotten familiarized with being in the center of attention, of talking to the press, of doing different things. I had also published a book and doing different projects. So it wasn't something entirely foreign to me. What was the incredible amount of attention, how much it blew up. It's one thing to talk to a journalist. It's another thing to see Elon Musk or AOC or Ted Cruz retweeting each other on this thing and having this be the talk on Good Morning America, these really mainstream, and not just in the US, but internationally. I would say I got a 50-50 split between requests or attention from people outside the US as well. I did not see that coming. And I was very fascinated. And I was really fascinated with as things started evolving, because it was, and it still is, a story that was unfolding, right? First, it's a short squeeze. Then you have the issue with the brokers that they restrict the trading. And then you have the congressional hearings. And then and the story is still to play out. Now we're talking about GameStop trying to issue additional shares to save the company, and there's a new chairman of the board, which is a very heavily favored guy. So this story is continuing to unfold, and happy to be a part of it and to watch it grow.
Yes, it is. And look, I guess the details of the story and how it does unfold are slightly out of the scope of today's discussion, because that could be an entire podcast series all of its own, and perhaps you'll be a part of something like that at some stage. But just before we start to talk about the Wall Street Bets Dapp and the DAO, I'd love, Jamie, just to how would you characterize the state of, I guess, the Wall Street Bets subreddit or the community, or where is it at today? What's the kind of the status of the community today?
It's undergoing a tremendous amount of growth, right? The community had grown, doubled in size, right? So first, year goes from 1,000 to 2,000, right? And 2 to 4. And next thing you know, you're going from 50 to 100. Next thing you're going from 1 million to 2 million. And then you go from 2 million to 10 million, right? Because of all the attention that it got. So I think it's still kind of finding its footing. There's a lot of new people that are not just new to the community of Wall Street Bets, but to the world of trading and finance. People that just read the headlines or they just learned about it some way and they're getting involved. And so as a community that has been constantly shifting since day one, it will continue to shift. I think that there's going to be some palpable changes based off of just the amount of growth, and the entire environment continues to change, right? Like everything these instruments that are available and the different rules are different. So yeah, I mean, I would say that it's undergone a tremendous amount of growth, and it's difficult to really see how things are going to really settle.
Yeah, so just looking at the Reddit community, there's 9.7 million subscribers there now. Fantastic to see. All right, well, look, let's bring you in, Vix, and start to talk about the Wall Street Bets Dapp and the DAO and what you guys are building there. So I guess maybe you could perhaps fill in the background as to how you and Jaime know each other and how this new project came about.
Yeah, so I've probably known of Jaime longer than he's known of me, but there's he's certainly much more famous than I am, and I'm kind of the crypto counterpart on that side of things when it comes to this project. So I kind of want to go back and start out with a very high level aspect of how we got to where we are today in terms of kind of the vision aspect of it. And I actually think the 2008 financial crisis, sowed a lot of seeds of discontent among, millennials and such like that felt, they kind of got the short end of the stick. So you saw the rise up of Occupy Wall Street. And, in political terms, there's basically two ways of change comes about. It's either voice or exit. So voice can be through whether it be protest or applying political pressure or through, the voting process. And then exit is when you give up on the current system. You no longer believe it's, the way for change, and you exit the system. And that can look different ways. What I'm going to show is kind of technological based. So if we kind of zoom forward now to the GameStop phenomenon, and there's a very famous post that was kind of done in this isn't necessarily my idea specifically, but the concept that there was this attempt to liquidate Wall Street. And I think that's what gathered this zeitgeist type movement, is people were so on board of the idea of really sticking it to, these bankers and such. And, that narrative caught fire. So, but what happened, right? Robinhood and several other brokers decided to, limit or disable buying. It kind of looked like the system itself and the large players were trying to protect themselves. Now, I'm not here to say if that was whether the case or not, but it at least appeared that way. So now we get to the point of, well, where do we go from there? Even voting with your money, i.e. trying to short squeeze these hedge funds, was kind of an active voice. So now we get to basically DeFi and crypto, where, it's the exit portion. We no longer want to engage in their corrupt system and on their terms and their playing field. We're going to go out on DeFi and start it there. And I should say what's very amazing and pertinent for the conversation we're having right now, as we're taping, we just had the Coinbase launch on the NASDAQ. In conjunction, we've also seen a number of tokenized stocks pop up on Binance and FTX. So you're starting to see this merger of the two, and you're starting to see people get more interested in trading these stocks, not just from the standard trading hours, but 24/7. So, that's basically where we're leading in to the WSB Dapp, because the WSB Dapp, and I hope I can continue on here, because what our biggest, overarching aspect of this is to take a one centralized process of indexing like the Dow Jones or the S&P 500, that usually once a quarter, some stuffy white guys get in a room and decide the weighting of their index. Now we're going to democratize it, put it in the hands of basically degenerate apes, and they can decide on the balance and structure of the constituents. So if they think Tesla should be 90% of the index, they could propose draw up a proposal and see if they get enough votes to create what we're calling an ETP, an exchange traded portfolio, that would be basically a basket of these 8 constituents. This is what we're going with right now. So I think that's a pretty good introduction to the DApp.
If I could add something to this, like there's something interesting that you mentioned, because I agree with you that the 2008 sparked something in the collective conscious, and I can and have talked about what that's done to this generation. But it's also worth pointing out that that's kind of when the crypto movement started, right? And a lot of the language around this Bitcoin, which was the original epicenter of this, was, hey, let's decentralize finance. Let's do away with decentral bankers. Let's do away with fiat. And a lot of the language was really progressive and really activist, right? Like there's a lot of purpose. There's a moral to why this thing is going to be better. I kind of saw that as a sidelines. I said, yeah, that's kind of cool. It's nice to have this decentralized. As an economist myself, I was much more fascinated by this concept of medium of exchange of goods and services, the practicality of being globalized. I don't necessarily think about toppling the central bankers as anything that was of interest to me, because I don't think that will ever happen. But what's happened along the way, then you have rebels that start growing on the Wall Street side of things. This is on the actual stock exchange. You have rebels that are kind of going out into the crypto world. And now you're having this inevitable amalgamation, right? This conjunction, this joining of the two forces, and it is inevitable. It's inevitable, and it's not from a moral standpoint of, hey, let's take anybody down or whatever. Nobody's going to take anybody down. Yeah, Wall Street Bets made one fund lose some money, and they're probably going to make it back. Like, it's not the message that they've sent is much more than that. It's been more, hey, we can now take control over this, right? We as individuals can have a voice. We can participate too. And yeah, we cost fund some money, or yes, we saved this company. And that's coming together with, hey guys, you haven't been paying attention to the crypto stuff. Think about the technology that you have, like the access to Wall Street. Now you can have a guy in India buying Tesla, right? I live in Mexico right now, and I have not traded US stocks since I moved here 7 years ago, because it's a pain in the butt. I have to transfer my money there. I have my brokers in the US, but I transfer the money, I lose I have to do everything there. So I've been limited to pretty much trading index funds and foreign exchange, because it's just not practical. Now I can buy Tesla on Binance. That is an inevitable, beautiful thing that is just a natural progression for how things are going to continue to evolve.
Yeah, some great points there from both of you, and I agree, because I think when the GameStop saga was starting to play out, and then there was this narrative that Robinhood was being shut down by I guess people pulling the strings, if you like, behind the scenes, and everyone that was watching from, I suppose, the crypto side of the equation was obviously cheering on the Wall Street Bets guys and the Robinhood traders, but also kind of thinking that, look, guys, if you do really want to do this properly, and to your point, Jamie, it's not necessarily about pulling down the entire central banking system, but if you do want to be able to make your trades kind of free of outside influence, and perhaps even being front run by inside actors, then crypto is potentially a much more even playing field, and that's really what this is about, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You have a transparency. Look, the system is so complicated right now. The reason why the stockbrokers had to stop trading was very technical. It was not this conspiracy theory that was being pushed around of these guys smoking cigars. It was complicated, and it's boring to explain. And it's because it's got a gazillion moving parts that are non-transparent. Yeah. One of those moving parts is, these payment forwarder flow firms that are, front running the trades and blah, blah, blah. any one component by itself, I don't see that big of an issue. I've never had an issue with the front runners for this type of thing. I've never had an issue with the payment for order flow. Never had an issue with the settlement process. I never had an issue with the clearinghouse process. But I have an issue with it once they all come together, because they all come together. The thing broke, right? And so, having this decentralized, proven, transparent, secure form of ordering and making things look, the stock and the financial system as a whole, or any market, has one of the primary purposes of that market. The benefit to the people is the concept of price discovery. People agreeing on a price, right? They come, they sell, and they buy and do whatever they want to do, and then that price is what the consensus is. And Wall Street has traditionally been plagued with manipulation, if you will. You have players that are able to push these things around and interfere with that process. The reason why insider trading is illegal, if you've ever asked yourself, why is it illegal? There's no victims, right? The reason why is because it's breaking the productive capacity of the market. If I research and I do my thesis and I do all this work and I assume that things are going to grow because of the market conditions or the book valuations, whatever, then I'm contributing by buying or selling that stock because I'm voicing my opinion on the market, and then the market can counter argument with theirs. But insider selling is just kind of a cheater. It's a guy that, well, I know that these numbers are going to come in low, so I'm just going to go ahead and short sell. That is not a productive component to the player. This concept of blockchain technology and having these ledgers, having these smart contracts, having everything be fully out in the open, completely helps towards the productive purpose of having a market. And the very fact that now, not only do you have this mechanism in place that facilitates that type of functionality, and it also improves the transparency of it. Now you're also increasing the number of participants. It is so much more valuable, the information that you get from a price, when 1 million or 10 million or 100 million people decide on that price than it is for 2 large hedge funds to decide on that price. That information is much more reliable when it comes. And so the very fact that now we're just crossing borders and time zones and all sorts of other requirements to say, not only do you have 50,000 voices, now you have 500,000 or 5 million voices that are trading at whatever hour they feel like trading. That is very productive to the world. And now, and not just talking about the US stocks, now the US people can also invest in other companies. Now it can invest in Korean companies, which has previously been difficult, or Japanese companies, or Indian or Chinese.
Yes, indeed. All right, well, let's we better keep moving on and kind of get into the nitty-gritty of how this all works, right? So Vix, the idea is that the WSB Dapp is a community-owned and operated decentralized version of WSB. So, all right, well, tell us how it works. What does it mean? Start from the top.
I would say, more so in a little bit more specific terms, it's, making a democratic process of the indexing. And that may sound initially kind of like, oh, maybe that's not that cool, but think of how powerful indexes are in the traditional Wall Street, whether it be the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, semiconductors, et cetera. So these are all decided upon by very centralized entities, BlackRock, Wisdom Tree, Dow Jones and such, where, a very small, number of people once a quarter get into a room and make these determinations. So what we're looking at doing is basically trying to establish an industry standard that's won by the WallStreetBets crowd, and it can be, further expanded out from there. And, some of these aren't like these aren't your grandpa's indexes. These are a little bit more creative. They get a little bit more wild. So it's kind of the concept of we can either, get a Lambo together or get wrecked together with these as well. Now, people still can determine whether they're going to go ahead and buy these specific ETP products, but it's ultimately the community that's determining the composition of the constituents in there. And to kind of unpack that a little bit more from the technical side, so It's only been very recently, and we've started to see some of the synthetic stocks and such pop up, where Balancer is allowing some of the pools to be used. And they initially didn't envision this concept, but it's become a organic phenomenon where now you're able to basically take these constituents and put it in a basket and then into your own ETP, your own balanced index in terms of what the community has voted on. So like I was saying, our flagship product would be the WSB YOLO stonks ETP. And this is kind of a benchmark that tracks the sentiment and the more popular stocks that, a lot of them are meme stocks, but a lot of them are the ones that are talked about the most on Wall Street Bets in that vernacular. So that's kind of the first foray into it. Now we're looking at doing anywhere from 4 to 8 ETPs within the next 1 to 2 years. It's just obviously it depends upon what the demands from the community are and what they so choose to vote and propose, as well as get enough people to actually reach the threshold to mint a new ETP. So those are all kind of moving parts. And, you could have competing proposals about the same ETP. Maybe one person says it should be 90% Tesla. The other person says it should be 90% GME. And they have to go about basically lobbying the community and convincing the community of why their proposal is better than the other one. So I think that's probably a good introduction. I have some pretty clever ideas of what else to do with these ETPs that I think are, they're not just the DeFi index or, the semiconductor index. They're much more flavorful than that.
And let me just add something to this. This is the value that the collective intelligence has, right? Ever since for decades, we've seen collective intelligence be great. We saw it with Wikipedia. We've seen it with open source projects. We've seen it with a ton of things. It's obvious that the group intelligence, if leveraged properly, can be really, really good, right? And I've seen ever since for the past 6 or 7 years, I've gotten offers by people saying, "Let's start a Wall Street Bets ETF. I'll do it for you." Blah blah blah. And I'm not interested at all. We recently had a meme stock ETF launch, right? Which has its own thing for it. And I never get excited about those things because they're kind of missing the point. Like these, they're unflexible, they're robust, and it's not necessarily a money-making opportunity. But let me tell you what is. I just recently read a study by some university. I don't know what it was, but it was a 35-page study with tons of math and tons of fancy graphs. And they proved that Wall Street Bets is beating the market, right? They showed that the returns that they're putting into the thing, their picks, they're very intelligent, right? Of course, there's a bunch of degenerates and they laugh and they have fun, and that's part of the personality, that's part of the fun. But they've proven, without a doubt, that they're able to actually be to form popular strategy. And in order for you to do that, you need to be able to have the flexibility. You have to be nimble enough to go with the times, right? You had Zoom completely explode when this pandemic started, and it went up a whole lot, and a lot of people made a whole lot of money. You had Hertz do the same thing. But if you would have put that into a meme stock ETF, you're stuck with that for 3 months, right? And your opportunity to get in and out of that stock was 2 weeks, a month, 6 weeks, right? And you need to be able to have that fluidity. And so now you're combining a system that's autonomous, that is, well, it's not autonomous, it's decentralized, and it's community driven, and it's flexible enough so that it can rebalance itself on a frequent basis. And now you can couple that with this group intelligence, which scholars have proven is there. And now you can actually have a dynamic ETP, ETP. You can have an instrument that can take advantage of all these things. And not only that, the kicker is now you don't have to just worry about stocks. You can put in cryptos in there. You can put in foreign stocks. You can put in commodities, whatever you want.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's a great point about, I guess it's funny in the last, particularly this year, and I guess, during the pandemic, it's if you were like a young, even like a teenager, and suddenly you've got all this time on your hands and you're familiar with the world of open finance and how these protocols work, and you can be nimble and fleet of foot, and you can it's a whole new world of opportunity out there. And yeah, as you say, we saw a lot of cases of these kind of traders outperforming the more traditional traders, shall we say. But look, Vix, I imagine, I said at the start of the show that a lot of people listening to this will be crypto traders who know how DeFi works. But it has occurred to me that I imagine there'll also be let's say, people from the Wall Street Bets community who have not yet dipped their toes perhaps into the world of DeFi. So maybe it'd be useful at this point just to kind of backtrack just slightly and explain how this would work. So I assume that, you just need to buy some ETH and have it in a MetaMask, something like that. And then you would just connect your MetaMask to the DApp, and then that would give you access to ETPs. And so we're talking the ETP, you mean the language here is just an exchange traded portfolio, and really that is just a kind of decentralized crypto equivalent of a traditional ETF product, right? So maybe just talk us through the process of how it would work in terms of for the more traditional Wall Street Bets guys.
Sure. I mean, I want to say first off, just from a legality standpoint, the reason why ETP, exchange traded portfolio, is chosen over ETF is there's no pooling of funds. Even though the index may be created, the actual minting process of when you go into Balancer with your, say, $100 of USDT, you just mint the actual token into existence, and that is your basket. And then, if the basket as a whole goes up, you end up, profiting on that, or, if it goes down, you lose. So the funds are fully segregated, which is very important legally, because if you're pooling assets, you run into a lot of regulatory malaise. So I just want to very clearly lay that out before going any further. And then to touch upon what you first asked. So first and foremost, I want to say that we decided to go on Binance Smart Chain, BSC, and the BNB protocol. That's been CZ's over at Binance's baby for a long time now. And the reason is to many people that are probably listening to this that are familiar with DeFi, we've run into just basically a standstill over in Ethereum with their ERC20 protocol, where gas fees, especially to use in DeFi, are just, they're cost prohibitive, especially for what I'd call the average ape investor, average retail investor. They're getting priced out of the market. So a lot of the projects that are launching on there are finding out that the interest is all moved over to Binance chain. And, there might be some other chains that come along. So, and we'll see what evolves out of that. So we wanted to make sure that we went on the protocol that has all the action. So the WSB token and, will be minted, or is minted already on Binance Smart Chain. However, the balancer protocol, or the balancer pools, are on Ethereum right now. So there is, and it just happens to be that Balancer is the first one to be doing some of this stuff. We're already engaged with some other Binance chain related tokenized stock projects. So that's also in the works. It's just we're starting with what we have right now and something we can launch pretty quickly. And then we'll be able to look at whatever ends up over on the Binance chain side of things, or other protocols if we want to make other ETPs as well. But you are correct. It's all DeFi. It's going to be through MetaMask and such like that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I apologize. I wasn't aware that it was on a Binance Smart Chain, and in some ways, that makes a lot of sense because as you've pointed out, Vix, particularly if it is people who are maybe investing smaller amounts. Yeah, if at times Ethereum gas fees can make those sort of transactions just non-viable, really. And of course, the other side of this also is, I think you mentioned before that Binance are starting to make available tokenized versions of some of these other assets. And I think I saw CZ was talking about they are listing the Coinbase token or making that tradable, for example, in the Binance ecosystem.
Yeah, I think actually he said it was a bit too volatile today to list it, but I would imagine that's going to be something fairly quickly that he'll end up listing. And Sam Bankman-Fried, the CEO over at FTX, who does have a partnership with Binance and CZ, has been listing tokenized stocks for quite some time. I haven't looked at their latest list, but I'd imagine it's probably in the 20 plus to 30 plus stocks and other instruments on there that they actually trade those 24/7. So this has been something that's been developing, and I think what's really interesting, especially as we record today and start to look at people that were very rubbed the wrong way in terms of what happened on Robinhood, that they felt they got shafted. You may end up seeing enough movement over in DeFi where it ends up becoming the primary marketplace for these tokenized stocks, and companies, rather than going to Wall Street to raise money or do it that way, suddenly they're looking at going through the DeFi mechanism, which I think is a really interesting thing. And I'm probably going to get called crazy and laughed at about this, but it might not be quite as crazy as I thought it was initially.
Anyone in the DeFi community would say that you're not crazy at all, and that kind of that's just inevitable, really, and that's where DeFi is going. But look, we'll see how it all plays out. In the meantime, what are the timelines here, guys? When does the WSB Dapp actually go live? What's the launch date?
Sure. So our probably biggest date coming up is the IDO, the initial DEX offering, which will be on BSC Starter. BSC Starter is a launch pad for BSC projects. We're doing a $1.125 million raise on there. Shortly after that, liquidity from that event will be the initial liquidity staked in PancakeSwap as well as Zero Exchange. That's where farming will begin. And then, farming should happen shortly after that. And then into that, we're already looking at starting to do some of the ETP products. Some of the stuff is a little bit dependent upon us providing liquidity for some of the constituents, i.e., would be a synthetic GME component that we need to end up putting into the basket. But right now, we can pretty much so do a crypto one. I've been kind of batting around the idea, and I'm not quite sure yet. But my favorite is your wife's boyfriend's crypto ETP. So I'll let you think about that one for a moment. But we'll probably put Ripple in there, and Bitcoin Cash and BSV and some of the
that is hilarious.
So that's just one aspect of what we'll be looking at doing with a number of the ETPs, and obviously that's still contingent upon the proposal getting passed by the community as well. So there's that component as well.
Well, I guess, those kind of ideas, Jamie, just speak to the degenerate, playful, gamified and memeified nature of not just what it means to be extremely online in the year 2021, but in particular, that cuts to the core of the ethos of Wall Street Bets, right?
Yeah, The most power, I've done a ton of learning over the past decade, and one of those things that I've learned is the power of the community is so strong. When I started Wall Street Bets, I'm talking about the first 2 weeks, I was the micromanager from hell. I am saying exactly how everything's got to go, and I'm slapping everyone on the wrist for breaking some stupid little rule. People are proposing improvements, and I'm batting them all down because I know best, and this is probably not going to work, and this is going to work, and then at one point I just kind of let go of the reins a little bit. And then I realized, wow, these guys are actually much better. Collectively, one guy is going to have a better idea on how to do this particular aspect, and the other guy is going to have a really good idea on how to do that. And then that's when things really start flourishing. So I never pretend to take credit for anything. And I have so much faith in just the collective that this thing, I have no idea how it's going to play. Look, I've watched crypto, but it is something that I have not been involved with, right? Now I see it as an inevitable necessity. I've been fascinated by it and I've liked to watch it, but I've never been super involved. Now you're going to have, and they've been kind of segregated on Wall Street Bets. They're just talking about stocks, and on in the DeFi world, they're just talking about crypto, and having that merge is kind of tricky, but it's there. Like there's one guy that I follow on Twitter that I love, and he's a famous trader and he's well respected in the trading community. And at one point he said, all right, guys, this is getting out of hand. I propose a hashtag symbol for when we're talking about crypto and a money sign crypto for the money sign symbol for when we're talking about stocks, because it's just getting difficult to tear the two apart. And I'm not so sure that we do need to differentiate those two, because those are coming together. You can now buy Tesla crypto, or you can buy Tesla actual stock. You get paid your dividends, and the underlying is actually going to be purchased. So the market effect is going to exist there, and having this kind of opportunity for people to learn about both worlds. There's so much to be learned, and there's so many opportunities, and I can't pretend to know what those are going to be, but I know that they're there. And having that in the hands of this intelligent collective is probably the most powerful part of it all. So you will see interest. And look, there's a lot of people that are interested in both, right? There are a lot of people that actually do have a core competency in both worlds, or even more than that. And I'm super excited about this.
One additional comment here, and I think Jamie can probably chime in as well. So the interesting thing about the community is, probably super majority, 80, 90% or so, are what I would consider kind of Chad basic apes. And these are mostly follower type apes. But then there's this other smaller segment of, kind of the autistic ape, which will actually go into tremendous amounts of depth and DD about whether it be companies or projects or whatever, and write these very elaborate, detailed, basically cases for whether it be bull or bear, usually bull. And, the Chad apes tend to gather around and follow, these autistic apes analysis. And I think that's where the collective kind of gets born. And, they're still acting leaders and people that step up, but it's still a decentralized aspect of it. That's kind of the beauty of it versus appointing somebody. And I think that speaks for crypto. That speaks for the movement that we've seen go on in inertia behind the Wall Street Bets community and what's gone on there. So I think that's what's really been the cool part about all of this.
I love it. All right. Well, gentlemen, I think we should close out this conversation. Look, love to have both of you back at any time at all, because I think it's going to be fascinating to watch the rise of the Wall Street Bets community as they enter DeFi. But just to close out today's conversation, just any closing thoughts from both of you, and tell people what they need to do and where they need to go to get involved and get engaged.
Look, I think that we're witnessing something right now that is just starting, and I don't think anybody is prepared for what's going to happen. And I'm not saying that the Wall Street Bets Dapp is the pinnacle of it. It's just coming in at the exact right moment. As we know, today we start having the Coinbase on crypto. On the Nasdaq. This is a symbolic thing. It's not hugely impactful, but we're starting to see a lot of headlines about these tokenized stocks. And we're starting to see a lot of buzz around the inevitable merging of these two worlds. We've seen it kind of slowly creep in here and there, but now it's becoming mainstream to the point, or it will become mainstream to the point where what we're witnessing right now is the beginning of a whole new era. And the decentralized aspect of it, I can't agree more with Vix. I mean, that the biggest weakness in Wall Street Bets has always been that there is, first, that it resides on Reddit, and then that it does reside, in the hands of very few moderators that can direct the dialogue and control to some extent what goes on and what doesn't goes on. So and to me, that's always just been something that's been a weak point in that. This decentralized version of just Wall Street bets and communities merging and money coming together from all parts of the world is fascinating. I'm super excited about it. And as far as how we can get on, I'll let Vix handle that.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just but a passenger on this whole movement, and I think that's what makes it so beautiful in a way, because the community will end up ultimately steering this into wherever they want, whether it be riches or wrecked, that's up to them. But ultimately, the communities mostly reside on Telegram. So at Wall Street Bets, at Satoshi Street Bets, you can find more information, including our light paper, as well as a breakdown of the ETP product on WSBDApp.com, DAPP. And that should answer quite a few questions. And then the pertinent date, if you want to be involved in the public sale, will be on BSC Starter April 20th.
Fantastic. Thank you both. And I'll have links to all those platforms and Telegram groups. They will be in the show notes. Well, this is fascinating stuff. Very excited to watch all this play out. I'm sure we'll keep in touch. But thank you very much, gentlemen. That's us for today.
Thank you very much. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Thank you to Jamie and Vix from the Wall Street Bets Dapp. So, yeah, quite exciting stuff, as we have talked about. Be fascinating to see how all this plays out. I'm sure the guys will come back on the podcast once they go live, which is happening very soon. Links, as I say, are in the show notes to their platforms, so you can learn more and get amongst it. All right, thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the Crypto Conversation podcast and whatever podcast app you are using. But for today, we are out of here. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin. See ya.